his 8-year-old sister, and she got pregnant. The child rode the bus, came to our church, got saved, sweet little girl. But she died when she was 12 or 13 years old of sickle cell anemia. She was sick most of her life and finally died at age 13. Close marriages like that often end in disaster today, but that would not be the case when the race was pure. So it's not a problem at all, actually, for several generations. Even today, in the animal world, frequently cats will breed back to somebody in their own family. And sometimes you see cats that are 6 toes or 7 toes. You ever seen those before? Or a little bit schizo. Yeah. All cats are schizo, in my opinion, but some are more than others, you know. And that's oftentimes from inbreeding. Same thing with dogs. When they try to get a hybrid dog, you know, they keep breeding close to the bloodline to get a purebred Chihuahua or something. Man, they're goofy. You know, they're nervous. They're jittery. Something's wrong with them, you know. Little loco a la cabeza. Crazy. That's from the close inbreeding, and that would not be a problem here, but it is a problem today. Okay, let's give a fourth reason why it's not a problem to marry sisters. Adam married his rib. Didn't he? People say you can't marry sisters because of genetic similarity. I say Adam married his rib. It's not a problem at all in the first generation. They would have had identical gene pool. Now, some have argued, well, how do you get the 4 different blood types? You know, A, B, AB, and type O. There's a great article in Creation magazine about that, the 4 different blood types and how they could have easily arisen from Adam and Eve. Now, if you want to go get Creation magazine in answersingenesis.org is the website, or you can get it, or you can call 800-350-3232 and get Creation magazine. It only comes out 4 times a year. And it's like $22 a year. So it's, $5.50 an issue. But it's just an awesome magazine to get and devour on the creation subject. There's a few things I argue with him about. I disagree with him on a couple things, and I've tried to tell him that they don't want to hear my opinion for some reason. But I still recommend him anyway. It's a good magazine. So there's not a problem marrying sisters in the first generation. There are some things you will not notice reading your Bible. I read the Bible, I don't know how many times, 60 or 80 times now, but some things you don't notice until you graph it out, like I've done in this chart, this longevity chart. When you graph it out, all of a sudden you say, wow, I never saw that before. For instance, you will not notice until you graph it out that Adam lived long enough to know Lamech. Noah's father knew Adam for 56 years. Look at the seminar notebook graph there, or same thing here. But if you look in your book, it's just amazing when all of a sudden you realize how many generations back did Noah actually have an opportunity to meet. How many of you met your grandparents? How many of you have actually met your great-grandparents? Has anybody ever actually met your great-great-grandparents? Nobody in the room. Look at Noah. He could have known Methuselah, his grandfather. He couldn't have known Enoch because he left early, okay? But then he could have known Jared. That would be his great-great-grandfather. That's 2 generations. He could have known Mahalalel. That's his great-great-great-grandfather. Canaan and Enos. He would have missed Seth. But he could have known his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. I bet they could have told a few stories, Can you imagine Adam being able to tell his kids and grandkids and great-grandkids what it was like in the Garden of Eden? Imagine a family reunion back in those days. Okay, everybody hop on the camel. We're going to go visit great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Adam. And he's going to tell us what it was like in the Garden of Eden before the first woman ate the first man out of house and home. Or whatever happened back then. But she did eat and they were kicked out. Some people say, did Adam ever have a date with Eve? Well, most people think it might have been an apple, but the dates in the Bible add up to 6,000, and you don't catch some things until you graph it out. For instance, some people are getting these things and using them for placemats at their table when they have company over. That'll start a conversation. We have them in laminated form, real heavy 10 mil lamination, expensive stuff, like a driver's license. But they're $5 a piece for the colored ones, and you can get them in laminated for placemats or something, or just hang on. Some people mount them on their wall and posters and frames and stuff like a picture. It really stirs a conversation. Like, wow, what is that? Some people try to teach that the Bible was handed down generation after generation after generation. You ever heard that before? Look at your chart. Is it possible that Adam knew Methuselah? Take a look at your chart. By several hundred years, right? Is it possible that Methuselah knew Shem, his great-grandson? They could have known each other for 100 years, right? Look how far Shem lived after the flood. Shem could have known Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So here you got Adam telling the story firsthand to Methuselah, Methuselah telling it to Shem, and Shem telling it to Abraham and Isaac. And if anybody argues or questions their story, you go back and check with the source. He's still alive. I don't believe you. Oh, let's go meet him. Come on, let's go get in the car. I'll take you right now. It's also interesting, if you read through the book of Genesis, if you get the Defender's Bible, Henry Morris's Defender's Bible is just awesome. We sell it to our ministry. You can get it through ICR. In Genesis chapter 2, he's got an amazing footnote down here. Eric, I don't know if you had a chance to read that yet, about the 10 different teledoths. Oh, it's like, wow. About 150 years ago, some German higher critics began to criticize the Bible because they noticed as they read through Genesis, it appeared like there were 4 different authors. And so they had the JEDP, I think is the initials for it, the Yahwist, the Priestly. And they said there's actually 4 different people that wrote the book of Genesis. And, it comes from 4 different sources, and it's just a compilation of, myths. Well, they blew it. There's actually 10 different authors to the book of Genesis. No place in the Bible does it say Moses wrote Genesis. Moses was the editor of Genesis. Moses wrote the next 4 books. He wrote Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, but Moses did not write Genesis. He edited it. What happened? God wrote part of Genesis and apparently gave it to Adam. Adam wrote part and passed it on. Noah took some of the book of Genesis on the ark with him. Noah wrote some. There's a phrase you look for as you read through Genesis. It says, "These are the generations of." That is their signature. I'm signing off. I'm handing it to somebody else now. Let me show it to you here. Genesis chapter 2 and verse number 4. These are the generations of. That phrase appears in Genesis 2:4. It appears in Genesis chapter 5 and verse 1, chapter 6 verse 9, chapter 10 verse 1, chapter 11 verse 10. Too fast? Chapter 11 verse 27, chapter 25 verse 19, chapter 36 verses 1 and 9, and chapter 37 verse 2. What's happening here is they're passing on the baton. They're signing off saying, these are the generations of Adam. Then somebody else takes over writing. So to scoffers that are saying Genesis is written by 4 different authors, no, it's written by 10 different authors. But all of them were eyewitnesses. This wasn't a story passed down generation after generation. This is eyewitness accounts. And it's just an amazing footnote there that Henry Morris has, and it's probably on their website, ICR, which stands for Institute for Creation Research, ICR.org. If not, I'd recommend you get the Defender's Study Bible. It's just tremendous. We have them in leather. Dan, did we ever get those in? Just burgundy only in the leather. Otherwise, you can get them in hardback, and they're like $50, aren't they?
35 for the hardback.
35 for hardback and 50 for the leather. But that's awesome footnotes there. You may want to read that. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, his explanation of the 10 different. It's called a teledoth. I closed it because I don't know how to spell it, or else I'd tell you right now. T-E-L, a doth. But the Bible was not handed down generation after generation. Now, you need to be aware that there is a little controversy on one date on this chart. And it's spelled out. If you look in the notes on your timeline, I think it is note number... It's about when was Abraham born. Which note or talks?